name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I was asked yesterday by someone after the Maundy Thursday service concluded to explain a little bit about the veiling of things. The cross is veiled, and if you go to other churches, sometimes they begin to veil all sorts of things. And my understanding, which admittedly could be wrong, but I did look into this at one point pretty in depth, was that originally the crosses were veiled on Good Friday because the service, and it's one of the next things we do, but midway through the service there's a showing of a cross, and that veiling is designed so that when the one cross that comes out is shown, your focus is on that. There's another bit of it, which also is that things that were gaudy or really expensive looking or gold also got veiled, again, to keep your focus in the right direction so that you weren't looking at the glitter, rather you were looking at the cross. Interestingly, that gets extended. People seem to like veiling things. And it gets extended out across all of Holy Week, in part because we do the Passion on Palm Sunday as well. And if you go to some churches, you will discover that they veil things at the beginning of Lent. And it may surprise you, there are even churches that do something called pre-Lent, and they veil in pre-Lent as well. We just do Holy Week, which is quite enough veiling. But it gives me the opportunity to talk about the cross in a sort of way in terms of how people see it. Now, you may have seen the cross that's going to be shown and that we'll have the devotions at when you came in. And that normally hangs in our parish office building on the wall, and it's taken down once a year for this service. I'm sure you're also very familiar with the big cross, the Christus Rex, that is veiled right now. And if you know those two crosses, you probably know that they're quite different. The wooden one is it's ornate, yet it's simple. It's carved, whereas the Christus Rex is, it's very gold, right? It's very beautiful and gold and presents a different image of Jesus. Now, for a second, you don't have to close your eyes, but I invite you to close your eyes for a second and just picture whichever crucifix you think of first. Now, I did this earlier, and the one that popped into my head was actually a whole bunch of small crosses in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. If you've ever been there, you probably know what I'm talking about. There's a bunch of graffiti down in the sort of lower level where crusaders and others came and carved in crosses all over the place. It's very pretty. Some graffiti is very pretty. This is very pretty graffiti. And it's thought that the classic Jerusalem cross, do you know the one with the single big cross and then the four crosses kind of around the edges? It's thought that the Jerusalem cross may have originated when somebody looked at all of this graffiti, these thousands of little crosses, and come up with this wonderful Jerusalem cross. Just as a question, did anybody think of, when you closed your eyes, the big Christus Rex? Okay. There's a good background story to this, which is I think I've told this before, but it's worth knowing. That Christus Rex dates in this church, I think, from the 1920s when they did, I think it was under Father Taggart, they did a renovation of the church sanctuary, and it was originally up against the wall. The organ at that time was sort of built into the church in a different way, and we had a sort of classic high altar, standard church structure, and the cross was up against the wall, mounted against it, and it was paired with our giant gold wooden candlesticks that will make their reappearance on Easter Sunday and Easter Eve. But originally, and I think some of you know this, the cross, which you can't see right now, was red. It's black now. And the Jesus on the cross originally had blonde hair and blue eyes and pretty white skin. And at some point during the renovation, when our current church happened in the 1960s, Father Hogue, who was the rector, and Canon West, who was a legendary figure in our diocese, who was very good friends with Father Hogue, made some modifications to the cross to make him a little more realistic. And if you can think of it in your head right now, the Christus Rex, the crucifix that we have, it's a black cross with gold outline rather than red with gold. And his skin is darker because that's what it would have been. His hair is black and his eyes are brown. And so you have a different image of Christ, probably one more accurate. It's, for what it's worth, it's unlikely Jesus had blonde hair and blue eyes. He was Jewish, and he lived in and around Jerusalem and Judea. And he probably looked a lot like most of the Arabs that live there today. There's a lot of different types of crosses. One that I have in my house that I rediscovered today when I was thinking about what I was going to say to you all is a cross with 2 wedding rings on it that was given to my wife and I by her family when we got married. I have a cross around my neck that my mother gave me when she went on her first pilgrimage to Santiago and walked 500 miles. Ironically, my parents are there right now, and I've been getting texts on my phone from them. They're hours ahead as I'm preaching. They don't know I'm preaching. They're in Spain. But so if you think of whatever cross popped into your head, my guess is you probably started to think of a variety of others. And I think the reason for that is similarly to how we have a variety of music, or 4 different passion narratives, or different ways the passion can be done. We also have a wide variety of how people understand the fact of the suffering and betrayal and abandonment and death and crucifixion and burial and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Those different understandings 2,000 years on come out in a variety of ways, but even if you go back all the way to the evangelists and the apostles, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John all tell us those basic core facts of the story, but they do it in different ways. You know the 7 last words? They don't appear in any one gospel. My God, why have you forsaken me? That's from Matthew and Mark. It is finished. We just heard that. That's from John. I thirst, also John. Into your hands I commend my spirit. Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. That's Luke. Every evangelist tells the story of Jesus' suffering, death, burial, and resurrection from their own experience and understanding. And I think when you and I think of a cross that pops into our heads, it probably comes out of our experience. It was important to us. Perhaps this one is important because it's veiled right now. The ones in Jerusalem are important to me because I was just there. The one around my neck is important to me because my mother gave it. The one in my bedroom is important because it was a wedding gift to us. But how you view those different crosses also, I think, gets into how you understand suffering, and how you understand betrayal, and how you understand being accused of things when you're innocent, and innocence and judgment in general, or suffering in general, or pain, or death and dying. And I think sometimes we may gravitate towards crucifixes that sort of back up our assumptions about how the world works and how things work. For example, Sometimes people gravitate towards very beautiful crosses that do not show the suffering of Jesus all that much. And I think sometimes that can be because, and I do this too, that we don't really want to think about pain and suffering. We just kind of want to focus more on getting through that and the resurrection. And that's okay. And sometimes we focus more on the crosses that have a suffering Jesus. And I think that may be because we've suffered and we need some encouragement knowing that God in Jesus Christ has done this too and knows what it's like when you've been betrayed or when you've been accused and convicted of something when you were innocent of it, and to suffer all alone and be abandoned by everybody, including your friends and most of your family. We've all been there too. And so I think we gravitate towards those. As we move through this day and as you go forward in your life, I actually invite you to cherish the art of the church. We have a lot of it here. And I think that when you look into a piece of art, a crucifix, or maybe an icon, or a building, or how it's built, or a window, you begin to see how someone understands their relationship with God. And it can open up your eyes and your heart a little bit to recognize that it's not just the way you think about things. The church is very diverse. People encounter God in very, very different and diverse ways. And the crucifix, and even the Good Friday gospel passion narratives, and there are 4 passion narratives, allow us to tap a little bit into the different ways people understand God. And that is a very good thing. So in a moment, we're going to look at a very different cross. And the opportunity is there while the choir sings to go up and to pray in front of it. And a conversation that Deacon Chisar and I had right before we came in here, when we were going over what this service is going to look like, was, well, do people kiss the cross? As they do in Bronxville, right? And they did at St. Mary the Virgin in Times Square, where I was a curate. And they do at St. Thomas Fifth Avenue, and they did at the Advent in Boston. They most decidedly did not in Granite Springs, where I was before. And we don't hear, but you could. The opportunity is there. The cross is just lying up there. So if you want to come forward and kneel and pray, you're welcome to. If you'd like to take an additional step and touch or kiss the cross, that's okay too. If you get too close to it, you may smell that it's been anointed with oil from the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And those that have been there will recognize that smell instantly. Pray over how you experience the suffering and pain and death of Jesus Christ. And pray that you can understand better through how you know God, other people's pain and suffering. So that when you're given the opportunity, which comes up more than we like or ever ask for, to be with someone when they are going through a time of trial, we can bring not only our own experience, but a deep understanding that not everybody sees things the way we do. And sometimes just being present is really all that we can do and all that matters. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Please stand for the solemn collects.